The college was founded in 1994 by our current president, Mary Hawkes Green, and her late husband, Michael. So we've just celebrated our 30th anniversary. Initially, the college offered undergraduate programs for study abroad students, primarily from the US. But over the course of that 30 years, that's expanded now to include all of our postgraduate courses. So we have the MFA in Studio Art, MFA in Art and Ecology. We have an MA in Studio Art and an MA in Art and Ecology, post-baccalaureates, which are higher diplomas. We still continue to offer undergraduate programs for study abroad students, and in recent years we've really developed our PhD program. The support of the RDS for emerging artists is absolutely crucial. For young artists coming through any academic program, it really shines a spotlight on their practice. It helps to give them a step forward into a public arena, to give them exposure, to share their work. As artists, that's what we do, and that's what we encourage students to do, is to get the work into the public, to share it with as broad an audience as possible. And the RDS Visual Arts Awards are an absolutely essential process for doing just that.
I've created a cottage in this faux landscape that is simultaneously in Ireland and not in Ireland. I'm a trans artist, and I deal a lot with comfort and discomfort in my work and home. As someone from Las Vegas, from the States, I moved to Ireland specifically because it was safer for me to be here than it is to be at home at the moment. I constantly have to deal with this comfort of being able to be myself in Ireland, but this place not quite being home, versus the discomfort of being at home with current politics and the comfort of being with family in the place that I grew up. So I have created a idyllic Irish cottage and a landscape to boot, talking about my experiences as a trans person in exile. My practice is very material driven. I make hard things soft and soft things hard. I subvert expectations of what these objects usually are in our day-to-day lives.
My name is Noelle Foden-Benzel, and I am a graduating MFA student in the Art and Ecology program at the Burren College of Art. My work is sculptural installation, rooted in craft and speculative design. I use waste materials, specifically plastic, to construct my installations. I am fascinated by plastic as a material. I think its life cycle is really interesting. Plastic is made up of the tiny deceased bodies of marine organisms that lived millions of years ago, and we've gone to a lot of trouble to mine them from the earth and refine them down to this waterproof, strong material. And then what's a little heartbreaking to me, and maybe the reason why I engage with it, is because we use plastic in a lot of single-use applications. It's a material that is part of us now, whether or not we intended that. I'm using it in a way that I feel imbues it with more respect than the single-use applications that we're so familiar with.
Holywell is a mixed media installation made up of found and kept objects and a personal archive mixed with detritus, moss and photography. It's a product of 2 years of research on archival structures and their relationship with colonial structures, as well as data transfer in cultural practices. My biggest inspiration is definitely the River Shannon. There are so many associations with fluvial systems, and specifically the Shannon. You can go from the economic systems in Ardna Crusha to mythological narratives to historical narratives, politics, and the reality of the amount of detritus and waste that can be found in the River Shannon.
I'm I'm Dr. Susan Conley. I am the Programme Leader on the Visual Arts course. The course is a very broad spectrum of all the disciplines. It encompasses everything from fine art, drawing, painting, sculpture, into more lens-based work like photography, sculpture and live art. I'm a big fan of the RDS. I won one of their prizes when I was an undergraduate myself, so I absolutely understand it from the student's perspective and the importance and the confidence that it gives at that very early stage of the transition from student into whatever that emerging practice, into that world of creative life, shall we say. I think what they do is really significantly important within the visual arts sector. The prizes are fantastic. The opportunities in relation to connecting and building networks with other students from other colleges, as well as obviously people who are in residencies or galleries and that aspect of it.
I'm Elliot. I'm doing visual arts at the Southeast Technological University. I like to make somewhat 3D collages combining found materials, my own photographs, and image transfer of photographs and works I've created digitally. I like to use motifs of space and human infrastructure like cities, as I feel like they embody the idea of distance and connection at the same time. This one is an installation piece. It consists of a record player and many broken pieces of a cup that have images transferred onto them. Most of the images are my own. For me, this was an idea of fragmented memories of your past or your childhood that have scattered over time. I wanted to use a mix of saturated and unsaturated image to create a contrast of more or less remembered things. Getting the long list has been good for my self-esteem as an artist. Getting accepted to the RDS would be great just for the recognition, and then if I am fortunate enough to end up winning, I'll be able to afford the time and the space to continue making the kind of art that I want to make.
My name is Sive McCarthy-McCool. I did a BA Honours in Fine Art in SETU Wexford. I work primarily in sculpture, installation and performance. I like to play with the sort of intimacy between the work and the viewer. Downstairs I have dance hall, and it's plaster cast of a horse skull, and it was based off the story of, while they found all these horse skulls under old Irish houses, they start to think that it was to resonate the sound during a jig. So I thought the visual of all these horse skulls laying beneath the floorboards was really powerful and strong. So I got some recordings of some Irish dancers, and I got some recordings of horses galloping, and I made a sound piece along with the cast that lets you hear the noises of the horses and the dancers at the same time. And for upstairs I have my work, These Are My Teeth, and it's the horse skull that I made with the casts, with a phone cord coming out of its teeth, and inside you can hear stories, people telling stories about their teeth. It goes back to that kind of intimacy. You have to go quite close to be able to hear the stories of the teeth. A lot of people don't want to be close to something like that, so it kind of draws that sort of macabre, absurdist humour in it.
I'm Alicia Fortune. I am part of the Bachelor Honours of Art in SETU. Here we've orchestrated chaos. I've blurred the lines between public and private life. I've been in the public eye quite a long time because I've done work speaking about my autism and how I've kind of navigated that. And this is just showcasing that, how I've kind of found my artistic voice in this way. It's a work I'm really connected to, as well as my film Marrow, which is about 6 minutes long, give or take. My creative process delves into the psyche and how one perceives to work and how you can express that. In the end, a lot of my work circles around communication, all these different ways, whether it's different art forms or different ways of even discussing. It would be amazing to have that level of a platform to be able to develop and grow as an emerging artist like that, and to potentially win an award would be life-changing.
My name is Anna Bekmansurova. I'm from Russia. I'm studying in Ireland doing the BA Honours in art. I'm a painter. I'm mostly working with oil. I'm also very interested in the analog photography. I'm interested in themes of memories and nostalgia and escapism. This one is called The Weight of Memory, This painting is based on the photograph that I took in Dublin. It was Bloomsday and it was after the museum was closed. This painting is called Adagio, which means slowly. It was from the video that I took of the record player. The atmosphere is very important for my work. What's happening in the world right now and the news and all the wars and the crisis and all of that are happening right now, and we are still waking up in the morning and we are continuing our daily lives and escaping from this reality.
My name is Cody McAvoy. I'm just finished my BA Honours in Art in SETU Wexford. These 3 paintings are a short narrative that aim to ambiguously depict my transition so far. So the first of these 3 paintings, What Are You Sure?, looked at essentially other people's reactions and how that affected me then as a trans woman. The second of these paintings, Is It That Hard?, was born from my relationship and experience with language and misgendering post-transition. Like when I'm in the midst of it, the third and final painting of my trio, I don't identify, I am. This one was born out of pride. It was born out of a steadfast depiction of everything I've been through, the likes of Darren O'Malley, their work on the Prototypes films. It showed me that if you want to talk about something as complex as gender dysphoria or gender perceptions, you can do it in a roundabout way, and it doesn't have to be explicit and straight to the point. So that's where my paintings came from, that idea that it didn't have to be signposted and tell you what I was thinking. You get to figure it out yourself.
I'm Lizzie Kinsella. I'm the Programme Chair for Fine Art here at ATU Sligo. ATU Sligo is a very new university. We're about 3 years old, but we've been here as an RTC and an Institute of Technology for over 50 years. This particular course, this fine art course, is unusually situated in that kind of moment between the town or the city and the landscape. So an awful lot of our students will reflect that kind of landscape back. We're between mountains, lake and sea. So we've got this kind of cultural melting pot in the northwest, and this fine art course lies at the centre of that. It's an incredibly important prize. I mean, it's on the map with all of our students. We consider it to be the Booker Prize for art students. So to get longlisted, I think that initial confidence that gives a student, their heads are down and they're making the work. And then they get this moment where they're given this long list, and this is kind of sort of reflective point where they fill in the form and then they start documenting their work for that. And suddenly this kind of reality that they are now practising artists kicks in.
My name is Cassandra O'Neill. I attended the ATU in Sligo in Fine Art. When I was creating these pieces, they're very autobiographical, painting with large brushes, trying to make them embodied and alive. I was always very interested in the body as being a container for the self. So to try and represent that visually has been a really exciting process for me. Some of the pieces I have larger scale. I wanted to play with them being more in your physical space so you could interact with them a bit differently. Then I have smaller pieces that were on the wall that made you want to go up and investigate kind of more intimately. It's such an amazing opportunity. Just to be longlisted is truly amazing. To win a prize, it'll give you such confidence in yourself and your practice. I think as an emerging artist leaving college, it's scary not knowing what's coming next, and to have this as the next thing is just so exciting.
My practice is rooted in the landscape of Donegal, where I grew up. Those sensory experiences of light, weather, trees, birdsong still inform my approach to painting. I make paintings which are often on a large scale, which lets me really interact with the surface. I don't use brushes in my practice. I use scraps of fabric, canvas, turpentine and bottles which I spray on to create spontaneity. So this painting is titled Bog Showers, and it's centred around my experiences as a child of going to the bog with my family when it would rain, and the smells, the colours of the dark evergreen trees just explode on the surface, and it's a real sensory experience for me and a real memory of my childhood. To paint, I really have to get into the frame of mind where I can place myself back into the memories, and then I can let go and pour onto the canvas. Having my work potentially in the RDS Gallery in front of a wide audience, and that exposure would mean a lot to me. I think it would be really beneficial for my career as an emerging artist.
My name is Mike Fitzpatrick. I'm the Dean of Limerick School of Art and Design and Director of Cultural Engagement for TUS University. Limerick School of Art and Design has been around for a long time, 1852. We cover a lot of different areas across fine art, across design, and more digital arts and media. The RDS have invested a lot of time and money in building the way they approach the awards. So it's not just the funding, it's also going around to the colleges, sending people around, looking at the work. So people get a chance to be in a competitive environment. That's also very vital to students to actually step out and say, this is what it feels like in the, quotes, art world.
My name is Eva Mulhall. I'm in painting in Limerick School of Art and Design. I work with oil paints using different mediums like turps and white spirits. I use primed MDF boards. I would say my paintings are minimalist industrial abstraction. For this exhibition, I have done a 42-part series. I've arranged them to look like tombstones representing the lives lost to asbestos poison. And I just wanted to bring awareness to the devastating effects that asbestos can cause. I've lost my grandmother and two of my aunties to asbestos poisoning. So I guess this is my way of really digging deep into the factories, picking it apart piece by piece and just trying to get the power back. Creating art helps me get out what I need to say when I don't have the words to use. Even just being nominated for this award has been the real boost of confidence to call myself an artist, and I'm proud to call myself an artist.
My name is Hazel Gardner. I'm studying painting in the Limerick School of Art and Design. My current practice is based in storytelling, but I'd like it to be a place where people can bring their own experiences and imaginations to the work. Oftentimes I may not even see a story in the work because of my process of working with mobile sheets of paper, and I work in mixed media, so mostly acrylic, interior wall paint and oil paint. And I find working with these fast-drying mediums in the beginning really helps this blurring of the story. It allows me to very quickly paint new layers and paint over the existing imagery and to reimagine it. I was inspired by Greek friezes when I was making this. I wanted it to be just kind of as enveloping as possible for the audience. I think that being part of the Visual Art Award exhibition would be just hugely significant recognition of my work. Maybe I could actually be a professional artist.
I am Charlie Iris and I study ceramics. I work in socially engaged practice on the housing crisis, specifically in Ireland. I tend to blend traditional craft with contemporary practice. The project I work on is called Don't Let Me Fall Apart. I'm making tiles and mosaics that are based on the decorative tiles that we use for houses numbers. Instead, I put messages that are echoing the voices of the people suffering from the housing crisis. With all this, I collected a lot of data on abandoned and derelict building in the city. And this is all gathered on a website with an interactive map and interviews and photographs that people can see.
My name is Lucy Sweeney and I'm studying print contemporary practice in the Limerick School of Art and Design. My work is sort of interdisciplinary between traditional printmaking practices and analogue photography. At the moment I'm working particularly with monoprinting and slide photography and projection. My exhibition is titled What Novelty is Worth That Sweet Monotony, and it's sort of split into three parts: the monoprinted curtains, the slide projection, and then the fossilized shark tooth that kind of draws you in and draws the work together. It's work exploring the nuances and the dichotomies that exist in being known, sort of looking at these liminal spaces that exist non-physically. So between silence and conversation, or comfortable and confronting.
So my name is Carly Trabuco. I'm a print student, but I work in photography and different print practices. So my exhibition is called Unveiling Traces. It is primarily just exploring the history of the Good Shepherd Convent, which is where Limerick School of Art and Design is currently housed. And being a student here on this campus for the last 4 years, I was just really moved by the history. As I researched, I found that the architectural traces throughout the building were what I wanted to highlight. And so my work is alluding to the fact that there's these traces all around that have stories to tell that we pass every day that we might not even notice. I feel like walking around here, there is kind of this tension between the past and the present here.
My name is Tori Holland. I'm in my final year of print contemporary practice in LSAD. The centre point of my exhibition is a vanity installation piece, which includes a 3-part mirror of 3 different perspectives of a girl getting ready. It's sort of framed with all of my digital prints, creating a girl's bedroom space. Then for screen printed mirrors, really inserting the viewer into the piece, as when they're standing in front of it, they can see themselves within it. A quote that I think really inspired and captures the conceptual framework is one by John Berger in his Ways of Seeing documentary, where he says, "You painted a naked woman because you enjoyed looking at her, put a mirror in her hand, and named the painting Vanity, thus smartly condemning the woman whose nakedness you had depicted for your own pleasure." I think that really captures the contradiction that lies in the heart of my work, that beauty is not owned by the beholder, but only for others to enjoy and her to deny.
My name's Sam Cumberfoot. I'm a student in print contemporary practice. For my degree show, I've created an installation. It's a combination of like kind of sculpture and 2D pieces. In terms of, I guess, more traditional prints I've got 2 larger screen prints on panel, a shrine assemblage as well, with a collection of shrine boxes with the plastic casted hands, collected foliages, a garment that I've made myself out of cyanotype cotton and lace, a collection of statues. For this project, a lot of liturgical design vestments, traditional Catholic vestments, have been an inspiration for me. Being longlisted, it's a level of recognition, a level of like self-belief that comes with that.
My name's Amy McNamara. I'm doing photography and moving image in the College of Limerick School of Art and Design. My work mainly focuses on performance, video and photography, as well as installations. I explore vulnerability, identity, internal criticism, but it's always through a lens of humour and satire. The title is called Restless Retail, and it's based on the concept of self-doubt and selling self-doubt. The installation itself is a market stall, and behind it is a video installation playing a live performance of Restless Retail itself. The products I'm selling are overthinking mist and imposter syndrome serum and burden butter, those type of things that would go along with self-doubt. I've always connected self-doubt to beauty standards and those adverts for certain moisturisers and cream that give you this promise that may not come true, and trying to find the humour within that can connect to an audience.
My name is Oren Kieran Coleman and I study photography at Limerick School of Art and Design. I mainly look at natural and alternative print-based techniques. My work explores the themes of grief and memory. My exhibition is entitled The Places That Hold Him, and my work I'm looking at the grief I have for my dad who passed away when I was a child. I was really looking at the impermanence of memory. The older I'm getting, the harder it is to remember him, and that's reflected in my work. The material was really important. I used grass from his grave and from my family garden to create these prints. There's also an element to the work where they fade over time, which is reflective of the memories I have of him as well.
My name is Marlena Wachrzejka. I came from Poland. I study photography and moving image in Limerick School of Art and Design. My work is about emotion and feelings and communication. My project is called Hide and Seek. This is 2-channel video and 4 light boxes with digital photography. In my project you can see me and my son who is on spectrum of autism. This is about playing hide and seek, his favorite games, and we want to show something different. I want to show to people how can be different when we watch on the different side. Like my son, he was nonverbal to 7 years, and I started learning his language, like nonverbal language, and how it's important when we see different people, because all of us want to be noticed and understand.
My name is Anne Curran. I am a lecturer on the BA Photography here at TU Dublin, and I'm the 4th year coordinator. BA Photography is located here in the East Quad on the Grange Gorman campus of TU Dublin, which opened 4 years ago. The BA Photography is a 4-year honours degree. It prepares graduates for careers in the broader media photographic sector as well as the visual arts. The RDS Visual Arts Award is an amazing award every year. It's wonderful to have professional curators coming in to review the students' work and to make nominations. It's also very important emerging artists going out into the field get that sort of exposure, and even the value of a nomination cannot be underestimated. underestimated. Of course, it's wonderful if they can go further. It is really effective in terms of the range of grants that are there.
I'm Alia de Leon. I'm studying photography and my exhibit is Thin Bloodline. All of the work I do is pretty personal. So my family is from Texas in the US and I grew up there. My family's Mexican-American, so I'm third generation American. And so it kind of started with, I don't really know anything about the culture. Part of my dissertation was going back into that. So I went and I scanned some of my grandma's family album. I really engaged with the ones of people and people in the landscape. I wanted to do something around the border because of everything happening in the US right now, how immigrants are being alienated and kicked out of the country. It felt really important. There's all the sewing done through the images, which are borders. The yellow's meant to mimic the yellow of the badges and vests worn by the border enforcement officers, and all of the yellow tape that surrounds it and all the yellow signs. The RDS Visual Art Awards would be such a great opportunity.
My name's Ronan Callahan. I study photography in TU Dublin and the name of my exhibition is Four Blows of the Leather. I wanted to document the way that schools and institutions in Ireland and the emotional effect that they had on young men. I gathered some subjects, I found old and abandoned schools and I went back through their histories to see how they felt that it shaped them, and to also just reflect on the sort of strictness and emotional wear throughout the secondary school system in the country. I asked the subjects if I could sit down with them and have an interview session to have their perspectives and their narrative and their story really come through rather than just having it be image-based. I think towards the end of it, I really found a groove with the portrait sessions and the interview sessions and then sort of culminating everything. It was very cool to see my tutors putting the sticker from the RDS down on the show. Who knows what's going to happen, but even just to be on the list is like a huge honor. It means an awful lot.
My name is Scott Nokia. I'm doing a BA Contemporary Art at ATU in Galway. This piece behind me is really using a protest sign aesthetic. It really speaks to us about personal engagement, social engagement, and asks us to really reflect, see our place within these wider concerns, and hopefully that can be a catalyst to involve ourselves, whether it's personal, wider societal concerns that we all see arising. Looking at all those things together and how we might fit in that and gain personal agency, where we stand with some of these issues. For me, the process is a lot. I go through many iterations and I'm really trying to take a lot of information and a lot of research and really condense it down to a very simple version of what I'm trying to say without losing any of the depth. Well, I think it's great for anyone to get any recognition for what they're doing if you've put effort into things. It's like someone saying, I should carry on.
My name is Lily Mannion, and what I'm calling the show is Age of Disorder. I'm really interested in productivity and how we've kind of worked the natural world to get to the purest form of production. I have a background in rural Ireland, agriculture, so I grew up in a natural environment, but I was constantly seeing these big metal machinery and these big metal forms and the tension between those two things. The piece behind me, which is entitled Over the Barrel, I've always been really fascinated by sculptural forms like barrels and troughs, big metal structures like that. I decided instead of making the actual barrel or trough or something to make pattern pieces of what that would look like if it was deconstructed, as an ode to industry and like flat packed furniture and the potential of something to be something, but it's kind of in that in-between state. This piece is called Maybe If, and it basically is composed of different levels of dust that I've made into resin beads. You can't really look at dust and know for sure what exactly is in it. So the act of taking it and forcing it to exist in this sense of inertia is just quite reminiscent of not being able to know things or do what you feel like you should be able to exist as.
Hi, my name is Lorraine Reynolds. The work that I focused on was photographic work primarily. It looked at themes of memory, grief and identity. The main area I was looking at was the fleeting moments of life and kind of that transitory nature of life, how we feel in moments that maybe might slip by or that we may not notice every day. So it was about capturing maybe the aesthetic or emotional beauty of those moments. I work quite intuitively. My work will always have to do with human emotion. With my work, the focus is on a real quiet attentiveness. So it's about slowing down in kind of a very fast-paced world, and maybe just the idea of close looking. So it's a huge honour to be longlisted. It opens up with maybe more people being able to see your work, also being able to speak with other creators and mentors and things like that on the journey.
My name is Mariana Wazowska. I'm in 4th year in ATU. Conceptually, I was trying to present this futuristic vision of polluted land. My work is mainly about textile pollution. I walk my dogs every day on the bog. I feel this pretty strong connection with the nature. I want to send a message to preserve places like that. So in my work, I was trying to present this futuristic vision of polluted land, how this is going to look in the future if we don't stop this consumerism. I decided to use abstraction. I pushed the traditional boundaries of photography and I started to juxtapose this artificial world with this natural world.
My name is Jana Ungesser. I'm a part of ATU Galway. Colloquial terrain is about the formation of an inner landscape, how influence and habit and tradition trickle down through generations. So I've been looking into a lot of liminal space aesthetics, and the word liminal itself, in Latin it's limen, which means threshold. Often liminal spaces are depicted as places of transition. They're depicted as stairways or hallways. I also liked the idea of the stairs as a domestic reference to the place where those habits are ultimately cultivated, which is the home. These sprouts are integrated into it. They're seeds to be sown, flourish under the right conditions, but then in a hidden space where things are not talked about underneath, they sort of grow larger and loom and become something a little bit darker and more harmful and harder to handle. This piece is called amorphous globosis. It's a medical term. It happens mostly in twins, where one twin will sort of overshadow the other quite early on in their formation. I decided that I would like to make one of myself. As it exists in this space, it's representative of something that, again, has all the appearances of me, but it's untrue, in the same way that those kind of thoughts and fears that may seem like such an integral part of you are untrue. There's something that's been inherited.
Hi, my name is Liz Moran and I'm a student of ATU in Galway. The subject matter is the ocean. I studied marine science about 20 years ago. Through sea swimming, I became really interested in that air-water interface, that transitional point, and also our connection with the ocean and the environmental issues. When you swim, you're kind of in the air. You go down and then you're in this entirely different world. The hope in the work is for the viewer to consider their relationship with the ocean, how they interact, see it as a being in and of itself, wishing to encourage a sense of custodianship. The pieces, viewed from the front, you see one thing, and there's like the subtle hints of the forms within the water. Viewed from the back, they're much more evident. So it's about revealing and making the pieces sufficiently obscure for people to create their own interpretations. You can capture the movement of water through using dye. Then it becomes like a collaboration between you, the canvas, the water, the pigment, the cloth, my own experience, and it kind of comes together to create a piece.
Jerry Savage. I'm in photography course in TU Dublin. Initially when I came to the college first, I was doing street photography, but this year I decided to twist it a bit myself and I went for landscape and out into the environment, which is something I'd never done before. I come from a background of dock workers. The connection with the Liffey has been there since I was a child. I've been down the South Docks and North Docks where my father worked in that, and I wanted to go back and source the Liffey and see where it came from. on. I just went back and I started to take photographs of the estuary Liffey itself. I took not just the river, but abandoned spaces and places, and I took some portraits as well of people who live close to it at the Liffey, people who use the Liffey for recreation purposes, but also people who are involved in environmental parts of the river, and that's what the project is all about.
My name is Vicky Ochala. I'm studying fine arts in TUD. My work is installation based. I work through sculpture and video. I'm inspired by my family heritage and Polish histories. I use interviews and I use these personal narratives and personal stories that I gather from my family. So I grew up in a post-communist housing block in Poland. I was interested in the deconstruction of the main room that I remember from my childhood. I was interested in how the collapse of these political structures had an impact on these architectural structures as well as the identity that you form within the home. My work is based off the artistic processes which are taking the objects directly and intervening with them, whether it's through casting, ingesmonite, welding, screen printing, deconstructing, constructing. All of these objects have an artistic intervention going through them. Winning the RDS Award would impact me greatly as it would give me a bit of financial freedom to keep creating work.
My name is Julia Spira. I'm studying for a honours bachelor's in TU Dublin. I primarily work with lens-based media. I focus on feminist themes, text and sound. I'm primarily focusing on the anti-abortion laws in Poland. There are exactly 10 A0 sized photographic prints, which I have scanned using the professional negative scanner. After that, I use screen printing to screen the bold red text. Language, both oral and written, is important in my work. I included a sound recording of myself saying a poem in Polish that I wrote, which is said from the point of view of an anonymous Polish woman living under these strict anti-abortion laws. I think it's important for artists who are in a privileged position like me to raise awareness about issues.
My name is Ayla Niach and I'm studying fine art in TU Dublin. I work mainly with sculptures. My exhibition consists of a series of sculptural assemblages. So each piece is made of both pre-existing materials and they are connected or entangled via handmade art interventions. So these are made from ceramics and silicone. The pre-existing materials in the pieces, their intentions are disrupted by the organic colours and shapes within the handmade interventions. It kind of speaks to a future imagining of how our waste will be used maybe by a future species in a world where humans maybe aren't at the centre of everything.
My name is Maeve Connolly and I'm a lecturer on the BA in Art at IADT. These awards have been really important for our students. It's a great opportunity for them to have their work viewed by curators who look at everything very closely, and even if a student isn't longlisted, I think it's a great thing to know that someone has spent time with their work. And then if they manage to make it through to be shortlisted for the exhibitions, they get to see their work presented to a really high standard.
My name is Bernadette Ryan and my pieces go here, there and everywhere. I've always done prints and painting. So finally this year I went into sculpture and this is my first installation. Because of doing it in COVID, what fed us all was nature. Everyone became aware of more the surroundings around us. I became aware of all the trees, all the flowers. We have many lockdowns, so through different seasons. So this process of the tea bags is very slow. It's very process driven because you first have to collect them, you have to dry them, you have to empty them. And for me, I ironed them and then I had to recreate these images. All the pieces here are recreated from branches of that were damaged through the storms, through climate change.
My name is Anastasia Varabiova and this is my installation Try Normal Life Maxing. This body of work, it's about digital technologies and their social and material impacts and the consequences that living a screen-based life might have on someone's idea of reality or on their ability to empathize with other people and feel. This piece behind me, it's kind of based on the big viral trend of AI-generated cat videos going around, and a lot of these videos were showing anthropomorphic cats in like really horrible situations. So like they're homeless or they're starving or there's like war going on. We're spending so much time and money making and consuming these images of these weird cats and empathizing with them instead of with people. And the grass on the floor, that is part of a performance work. It's a question of how does one come back into nature in this very digitally mediated world.
My name is Anne Stillman, and the name of my work is Apostasy, Echoes of the Sacred. My theme is about the loss of religious faith as a sort of an expression of my own confusion and loss of faith. This is oil paint on canvas, which is my preferred medium. The colours are much richer than acrylic, for example. Colour is a big part of my practice. The first step was picking the images. Then I took those images and inverted the colours to get a negative, which makes it more of a mystery out of it. And then I pixelated the same picture and just removed the part of the face. What I'm painting then is that composite of those two images.
My name's Emer. My piece is called Tranquility. The theme is rest and taking time out of your day to just let your body rest and not feel guilt over that, and acceptance of being calm. Nowadays, your life is just so busy, and I think it's good to normalise just letting your body be at ease for a little while and not be productive all the time. This year is my first year doing oil painting, so it's been a lot of learning making these. I'd be really interested in realism, but I like Jared Richter, the way he uses photography in his work, and Andrew Wyeth, the figurative work I'd really enjoy.
My name is Roisin McGall, and this is Prop Hold Bear. I use construction and utility materials to make sculptures and installations, so this work is about the formal material and conceptual possibilities of support. So there are these walls which are like divides, and they create and enclose the space. Then there are steel sculptures which hold and distort volumes of space. There are cedarwood handles that are steam bent, and they kind of gesture to touch and support. And then there's a screen print of an architectural support structure that's printed on glass, and that leans against the wall. And that image kind of locates the rest of the work. So I'm interested in the relationship between the viewer, the art object, and the space in between. And then I came to support as a subject, and I'm kind of interested in the potential of support, its importance socially and politically, and also structurally.
So my name is Anna, and this collection is called Stem Arch Murmur, The Road Goes Inwards. I've always been really involved with drawing ever since I was a child, but recently I have gotten really involved in somatic drawing, so the process of kind of connecting the mind and the body through the making. With this body of work, I was really interested in a philosophical aesthetic concept from the mid-1700s. It's called the sublime. It was coined by Edmund Burke in his exposition, A Philosophical Inquiry. It's linked with like awe or terror, the most intense emotions. Each of the drawings investigates a different branch of it. I've been making abstract work because it's a visual way of communicating. More often than not, like the thing that I'm trying to communicate is not something that can be spoken.
My name is Shifa Nivarian. The installation, it's all about object attachment and holding on and letting go. So I asked the women in my life what items are most sentimental to them and what they value most. And this is kind of an amalgamation of all of those. And what I found was that all of these things that they held on to, it was not really to do with what they were, but more the people behind them and the connections they had made with those people. I found installation made the art much more present and much more engulfing, like you could actually step into it and it would be surrounding you. I was remaking a lot of these objects that were made by my loved ones. The horsehair, for example, I plaited it alongside my own hair. It was about how my violin teacher was taught by her mother, and then she taught me. That was passed down through her to me, which was very personal to me.
My name is Wafa Mohammed. My work is based on the eyes. I'm really interested in body parts like hands, eyes, mouth, ears. I wanted to do eyes, not just realistic paint. I wanted to make it in abstract way. My impression of the eye. I zoom in to the actual eye, and I just was really interesting to see all the lines, how it differs when it's wet, when it's dry, when you're nervous, when the pupil go bigger and smaller. So I put my service on the floor, and I put the acrylic paint on cups, and I put them with water, mixed them, and then I poured them on the surface, and I used my hair dryer to move them around. So I didn't use any brushes, I didn't use my hand, and I was actually not planning for the final result. Moving from realistic paint, I was really focused on every detail of the paint and every detail of the art piece. I have to make it very realistic to something really abstract. That's a very big challenge for me, and I was really having fun doing that.
My name is Maria Balan, and this is Barangalia, or a project about Romania's struggles. I had to bring awareness to it, because sometimes you kind of compare yourself with the people you live with in Ireland. Coming from Romania, you realize that there's many differences in the way you grew up. I kind of wanted to bring some awareness to how harsh some of the conditions are in Romania, especially with my peer group. There's a lot of smart people, all of them were amazingly talented people, but because there's no resources, there's no help for them, they can't really get a future. Here, there's so many opportunities for young people, whereas in Romania there's not many. This first piece is mainly about poverty and how 1 in 5 people in Romania are affected by poverty, and how it's very difficult to just exist there, let alone try and leave the country. But this one's mainly about alcohol and drug abuse, which is a very common thing, especially with the youth in Romania. This one is actually more personal, related to a crime that happened in my city. And then the last piece is about leaving the country, realizing that as much as you can love your country, there's not much in it that can keep you there.
I'm Julia Rose, and this is My Body Remembers What I Can't. This piece focuses on internal victim experience post-sexual trauma and sexual violence, so it looks at the impact that sexual violence has on a victim being me in this circumstance, drawing from personal experience. We have 5 videos here playing. The first 4 are showing the more external coping mechanisms that are formed to reduce anxiety. The last video is a performance with spoken word and headphones that is more of the internal victim experience. The purpose for these videos being projected big, you're supposed to feel anxiety. The audio that's in the space starts with slow breathing and gets to hyperventilating and kind of brings you there. And when you get to the back, it's supposed to bring you into the more internal, personal, and away from the noise of it all.
My name is Logan Valentine, and this piece is called Crypteron. This is a piece that I made. It's about disability, the loss of autonomy, and my own perception of my body as it's been changing. It's questioning the self-blame that comes about with developing physical sickness, physical disability. And in the piece, I compare it with the silk moth specifically, because I feel like there's a lot of similar perceptions, I would say, in how they're perceived as naive or chasing something that they can't have. I was kind of inspired by taxidermy, being bound, and also Franz Kafka's works, and specifically metamorphosis, in that I really could relate it to my own experience. So I wanted to make something in my practice that would have a similar effect.
My name is James Kelly, and my project is called Crown Clon. It's a selection of 4x5 large format images, and the idea behind the project was I wanted to try and look at my family and what sort of effect that would have on me and my personality and why I turned out the way I did. So we look at trees, and we count the rings going in. So what I wanted to do is count the rings on my life and try and figure out what took root, what happened. To me, it's answered a lot of questions, and it's also provided me with about 100 more. I got a better idea of the scale of my life in comparison to my family's life. One of the images is the heights on the door frame as we grew up, so my grandmother would always mark them, and they became very literally like tree rings. Another image is the scratches on a hardwood floor made from my grandmother. She can't walk or talk properly and look after herself anymore, so my mom would pull her in and out from the breakfast table on a chair. So those scratches are the topography nearly of that. It's a hardwood floor, so it's bringing back to trees, back to family, back to that whole connectedness. So
my name is Charlie Deneen, and the piece is called The City Beneath Me. For 7,000 years, right, there's this ritual that takes place on the 1st of May, and it's kind of a dying thing now, and the whole project is a reimagining of what they were and what they are through collected sounds and local tales, and following these paths. I've tried to kind of make sense of it all and add a new layer to the story. What was central to the project was researching these incredible stories about fairies, what went on in pre-Christian times. The most important thing was having my feet on the ground and completely immersing myself within the landscape. Walking the trails most days at the early hours, seeing what could be done and what could be shown and how I could make it work. I mean, I've definitely gained a deeper understanding of who I am and where I'm from and what my ancestors might have said or done, and it's been a beautiful experience to kind of go up there in the early hours and just have nothing around and complete silence. It's a very minimal area, like it's very close to something very sacred.
My name is Miguel Reis and my project is called Heróis do Mar, which means Heroes of the Sea. I grew up in Portugal. I spent a lot of time close to the sea and close to fishermen, and I always had a little bit of an interest in what they do. I remember always seeing the same people on these specific beaches, and I wanted to understand more what they do. I ended up having the chance to stay with them for a long period of time and document this traditional Portuguese way of fishing called arte chavega, which is only used in Portugal. It was not about the type of fishing itself, it was more about the people themselves and the people that keep on using this traditional way of fishing that is slowly dying. The plan is to not only continue the project, but I want to bring the photo book I made and show them. I think they will be proud of seeing themselves in an art form.
My name is Cassandra Loya Garcia, and the piece that you're looking at is Routine. I inspired myself for a lot of artists and from French TV shows such as Bloqué, which sets two guys sitting in a couch. That was my main influence on the work. I think the interaction with people, being able to come into the space and sit down on the couch and have a real interaction with the flat and make them feel at home watching TV was mainly something I was looking for, to make people comfortable within the exhibition. Now that the course is photography and visual media, I kind of really exploited this part of visual media aspect, including a real installation with a video piece. I really wanted to push the daily life of female student is to have a gaze of what a female life looked like, how the routine and the everyday life can actually be funny and quite playful, and how you can find joy in the little moments that are just dull most of the time.
Brian Dixon, head of Belfast School of Art. We were established in 1849. That makes us one of the oldest art schools on the island of Ireland. We have a wide array of disciplines which spread from fine art across to design. There's no way actually of properly capturing the importance of awards like this. The reason being provides us with an opportunity to expand our professional practice repertoire, meaning that we are better able to ask our students to articulate what it is they do, the value of that, and the importance for wider society.
My name is Dara Borges and I am studying my bachelor's in fine art here at Ulster University. As you'll see here, I've collected tickets from my journey to work and I've laid them out chronologically. That is sort of a documentation of this mundane routine as well. I've cut the context out of the tickets. So those gaps create this visual metaphor for a sort of failure to connect to all of those days, even though they happened. In other pieces, I have this obsession with time and routine, and I've taken a more general approach to that with my birthday piece and my Vox called Heartbreak and Heartmake. That industrial shape of the grid can be found in my cage and as well in my photography, and that shows my interest in capturing these fences that are symbolic of structural barriers and denied space.
I'm Lucy Logan and I study fine art at Ulster University. My creative practice is very labour intensive. It's informed by the weight and movement of material, particularly its interaction with bodies. In this case, the body I had the most ready access to, which is my own. What's on display here is 6 pieces with 2 accompaniments of resin casts, each portions of the body taken from the aforementioned casts of Jesmonite. My work is driven by my position in the class structure. It's something known in post-colonial theory as subaltern, as in the subject who is not granted recognition. In this display, I am granting myself a kind of recognition, a sort of confronting myself.
My name is Alyssa Donaghy. I study a BA Honours degree in Fine Art at the Ulster University Belfast. My creative practice focuses on the themes of liminality, life and death, conflict and politics. I mainly use photography and sculpture as my main source of imagery. I like to create an abstract and metaphorical image using this, encouraging the viewer to create like an emotional and conversational response. This piece here is called Out of the Blue. It is a CMYK screen print with carborundum. This here piece is called Stand Down. It is also a screen print. It's on a pallet wood, and I've got two metal pieces. Both are using an etching onto a plate. One of them is called Close, Trapped, and the other one is called 180 kilograms. There's another piece where I have a video, and it is of vintage photography, sourced from my father. He's the one also experienced the troubles.
My name is Anna Brown and I'm specialising in printmaking in fine art at Ulster University. My work looks at the boundaries between reality and illusion, and also the transformation that can take place between physical stage realities and then also image manipulation. All of these pieces are mostly screen prints. I've been working with different materials and focusing on the actual materiality as well, because I'm interested in the juxtaposition between different contrasting materials and the ways that their meaning can be changed with whatever you add to them. So by screen printing onto them, it kind of changes their context in a way and adds something to their substance. I get a lot of my inspiration from film and fashion, so from the kind of curated aesthetics that you can see from different fashion houses and different films. Each director has a very specific vision for their work, so I take a lot of inspiration from that.
My name's Cora Brown. I do fine art. I'm a mixed media artist. I feel like my work gets too stagnant if I stick with one particular medium. I utilise found objects a lot. If you look around you, there's a lot of imagery from Northern Irish symbolism like boxing, religion, mythology. My stuff is very contextually heavy, so a lot of these images I get from literacy. Coming from a working class background where my household is reliant on financial aid, and a lot of things around Northern Ireland are like that, and I want to showcase that more in less of an evil light and more of a understanding way. The shoes are inspired by where I come from, Poglass. There's this mantra that Poglass are steel shoes. Obviously it's not true. So I want to make the humour also known through my art. It's not all doom and gloom. This is a reality and it can be funny.
My name is Amy McRoberts. I am a fine art student at Belfast School of Art, specialising in ceramic sculpture and lens. I would say my art is rooted in feminist theory. I work mostly with themes of social justice and structural inequalities, particularly with this body of work, the systemic issue of violence against women and girls in Northern Ireland. I like to imbue my sculptures with figurative elements, but also I use elements of abstractism. I don't want the figures to be identifiable as any particular victim, but I do want them to have that feminine feel. This body of work is titled 2022. It is a memorial essentially to the 22 victims of femicide in Northern Ireland. I wanted to create for the viewer a visual line of the progression and the rate at which it is worsening as a sort of call to urgency, a call to action, and to really bring awareness to the prevalence that is violence against women and girls and femicide, especially in Northern Ireland.
My name is Saoirse Keeve. I'm doing fine art at Ulster University. My practice comprises of sculpture, lens and performance art, each amplifying each other and in cohesion with one another. I work to externalise the internal, often working from darker places of like pain and suffering, but by doing that I work to release those feelings and put them fully into the work so that they're no longer in me and they're out in the world. The whole exhibition is titled Testimonies. Each element is kind of a bodily representation of all the things that have happened to me. I have a strong focus on materiality and the tactility of work. I often use latex for my sculptures as it's very unpredictable and kind of gross, but I like to confront the things that make me feel uncomfortable, and by solidifying this material in really neon, garish, dark, horrible colours, I'm taking it all out of myself through the labour of making things, and they kind of exist as their own bodies and perform in their own right as well, which is where the performance art kind of ties into it.
My name is Georgia Essler. I am in the Fine Art Painting course in Ulster University, Belfast.
My creative practice definitely comes from personal experience. This piece of work especially was very important to me as it comes from my personal experience with abuse, which is a very dark topic, but I wanted to represent that in a very non-exploitative way to victims, which is why I mainly focus on rooms and spaces instead of the people themselves. I really like using kind of realistic style, but with a twist. I don't like doing everything completely perfect, completely proportional, to kind of give it more of a off, uneasy feeling. These pieces were all research that I did on historical abuse cases, the victims involved, where the crimes happened. These places, there's 3 different victims and each is a different form of abuse, a different gender, a different age, just to kind of show that it can happen to anyone, anywhere, anytime.
My name is Sophia Sikrova and I'm in BA Hans Fine Art and I am based in Belfast School of Art at Ulster University. I'm a painter and I primarily work in oil, but I also love using clay, charcoal and collage. My practice focuses on the Slovak feminine folk figure, womanhood, motherhood, and personal identity. My work also has a strong storytelling narrative within it. I use symbolism, traditional Slovak patterns, and domestic materials to create these stories about women growing up, the changes they faced, and just the expectations that were put on them from generation to generation. This exhibition focuses on the transition from girlhood to womanhood. It is framed by the really rich and important cultural years of Slovakia. Each painting has its own aspect which can cover one topic or multiple, such as growing from a girl to a woman and the expectations put on those women during those folk years.
My name is Maria and I'm part of Ulster University in the Fine Art Painting course. My practice focuses on still life painting, which I paint in a contemplative and meditative way, and it focuses on the subtle intricacies of everyday life. I think it's my need to paint and draw, and through that to understand objects and shapes, and through my muted colour palette and through my still life setups, my desire to just see how something will look on the canvas. My inspirations come from making things and from the shapes of things and objects I find and collect. It's almost as if I become obsessed with them and then I paint them and they become something else. One major inspiration was the artist Morandi. His work has influenced my work greatly.
Hello, my name's Grania and I'm an Ulster University student doing fine art in painting and ceramic. Presently, I have on display painting and ceramics combined, and it's oil, acrylic, wood, canvas and the ceramics all together. And I think that blend builds a nice picture overall. So my artistic vision started from growing up in a country that was colonised, dealing with trauma that happened from my childhood and never wanting to see war or hurting people again. And I use my art to heal, not only for myself, but I do women's workshops to help others heal. Using different mediums, I find gives me a much more expanded field, because that's what it's about. Art to me is about an expanded vision where we're not limited, and the use of wood, canvas, embroidery, as many different mediums as I can use. This allows for a bigger expansion, a bigger vision.
My name is Shifra Menace. I'm in sculpture/lens-based media. I work mainly through collecting things and archival processes, especially things that would reflect Irish history and also kind of reflecting the current socio-political landscape of Ireland. Here I have built a cairn or a corbelled structure. It's based on Neolithic or early Christian Irish architecture. So I was using the same technique that is used to bring the bricks in closer together as they go up. Instead of stones, I'm using wax bricks that are cast from Bordemona peat briquettes, and then surrounding it is pedestrian barriers that I collected from the city with wax striped over them as well. Again, looking at how these structures would often have standing stones around them and kind of bringing that into a more modern context of the pedestrian barriers.
Hi, I'm Esther Barfoot. I'm studying fine art. This is my degree show called Shed series. The inspiration behind my work is my surroundings and my environment at home. So at home I live in the rural landscape of the Burren Mountains. I focus on the rural countryside, and instead of looking at the picturesque scenes, I studied the overlooked, forgotten places. I have enjoyed looking at them to find the beauty in places that people would just walk by. First I began sketching the place and getting the composition correct, and then I move it on to prep studies. So I'm like using colour, bringing in textures and sizes and spaces and playing about with the composition to get it correct, and then I move on to painting. So I do a bright underpainting to bring out the colours. My work's sort of geometric, and I went back to my roots in watercolour and acrylic.
My name is June Connell and I've just completed a BA Fine Art degree. The title of my exhibition is Linear. I like to immerse myself in nature and I find it a great way to relax and de-stress. I like to walk daily on my local beach. I'm very interested and fascinated by the occurrences of shape, colour and patterns that we see around us in the natural world. I photograph what I see and what influences me, and then I manipulate and explore and experiment with that by drawing or printmaking. I find that it gives a new life to what I'm doing. I like to capture the duality of nature in its might and in its fragility. The printing process has enabled me to embrace experimentation and manipulation, reflecting the fluid and ever-changing elements of nature.
My name's Joanne Proctor, and the title of the overall exhibition is The Air Has a Silent Symphony. It's quite a minimal exhibition, but quite complex at the same time. I have 3 pieces in the show, and each of them denote my body in some form. So the neon piece with handwriting as an extension of the body, the organ pipe with the corporal breath, and the latex piece has my own biomaterial, my own hair is stitched into the latex. So I utilise the needle as a drawing tool, and I stitch my own hair into paper, linen, and more recently into the latex as well. A lot of my work would incorporate ideas around the body and also ideas around grief. I've also been studying Jungian psychology and consciousness studies, so Jungian theories in relation to the archetypes and the collective unconscious.
I'm Suzanne Horsch and this is my installation, Swimming in Space. So what you can see in this installation is an archive of my last year that I have documented through daily writing that sort of tries to capture liminal space between the end of my marriage and the working towards a new beginning. From my writing, I tend to visually document the essence of what I've written into drawings, and then I turn these drawings into soft sculptures. This kind of way of working has become a really useful practice to get an understanding of embodied thought. That idea of archiving feelings helps me to understand what's been going on. It's interesting for me. I'm quite inspired by Donna Haraway's idea of tentacular thinking. In her book, Staying with the Trouble, she talks about the importance of creating new stories. I feel that my work sort of builds a world that holds a story.
My name is Liam McGinn and my piece is called Every 5 Steps. The concept behind Every 5 Steps is based on a walk. It's a remembered walk and it's part of my video piece, which is a stop motion video. The walk was really for my own health benefits. Every 5th step I took a deep breath and that took me into almost like a meditation. So everything's based on this remembered walk around my studio. I am really inspired by the impacts of the post-industrialisation on the family, and that also has bled into the work as well. My work really based in performance action, and the performance action that is based on is the action of unravelling. From that unravelling process, I've taken it through a variety of processes, including video editing, use of textiles, drawing, writing about it reflectively, and I'm coming to a point where I can arrange these pieces together, a combination of different media that has different qualities but yet share the same subject matter.
I'm Rhys Murphy and my piece is called Shame Me. The whole idea of the piece was personifying shame, and I always have this feeling that shame is this ambivalent creature that's always on my back, so I kind of wanted to create my own personified version, and the whole piece is displaying how the character of shame is tormenting me and how it affects me, and just in general the idea of shame and how it affects especially queer people. My work has always taken a very personal approach. It's always been about taking what's inside my head and trying to visualize it and bring out the characters or the voices that are in my head, and I give them their voice in the video pieces or in work. It's always been the same idea and core subject belief, even if the mediums have changed throughout the years. I've really spent the time perfecting what the most succinct and powerful way for the story to be portrayed is.
My name is Moira Snoddy and my work is called Glimpses. I wanted to play around with the idea of memory and fragmentation of memory. I wanted to do that through older, obsolete technologies. I think a big part of my work is to do with the materiality of the media that we consume, a lot of it being digital. I was quite frustrated a lot with having to always work in and around the digital, and I kind of miss the physicality of holding and being able to hold the work. So that was something that was really important for me. So the work itself was shot on 2000s camcorder, very documentary style, documenting friends and a little bit of archive as well. Each of the sequences are burned onto separate DVDs, so they exist physically as well. When I was shooting these, they were shot over about a year. I had in mind this concept called anticipatory nostalgia. It basically proposes that we can feel nostalgia for a memory that hasn't happened yet. I wanted to be able to merely preemptively capture memories that I thought I would be nostalgic for in the future.
My name is Kislin Toon and my photography project is called Margin of Being. The main thing that I focus on with this project is the fixity of gender and ethnicity in contrast with the fluidity of queerness. I kind of wanted to embody that in a physical way and embody the idea of queer freedom. I feel like it's influenced a lot of my projects as an artist because not only do I want to work with providing a voice to marginalised queer communities and especially people of colour. It's also something that I've navigated myself as well throughout my own personal journey. I was playing a lot with fabric and movement. I kind of utilised the way that hair would flow, the way that fabric would cover them to use that as the physical, tangible idea of queerness and freedom, but also in a way to shield their physical identity so that they could express their identity in a way that simply wasn't seeing their face or seeing their body.
Oliver Galbraith, final year photography student, Belfast School of Art, and this is my work, Time Registered in Spinning Dials. The work focuses on the towns on the easternmost coast of Ireland, on the Ards Peninsula. It's quite an isolated region. You can only enter through the top and there's a ferry at the bottom, so there's no one ever just visiting. It's the kind of thing you're always just passing through. There's just one road going through all these towns to get to the bottom to leave it. So it's sort of focusing on the abandonment of them through the late stage of urbanisation. As everything's moved to the city, people from the traditional industries in those towns are forced to commute out into the city. I've always been fascinated with geography, so when I was researching for my dissertation, I came across the term psychogeography, which talks about how the landscape can impact the psyche of the people that live there. And I felt that when I was younger, everyone was always saying that the small towns and villages have such great character, and sometimes when you actually go there, it's a lot of old, broken down buildings with nowhere to actually work or to, enjoy yourself there. So I thought it was important to try and show that and, in a way, get more focus on it.
My name is Bradley Eager and this is my project Surface Tension. Surface Tension documents Belfast sort of as a canvas. It looks for the tiny things that people have to say, graffitied on the walls or printed on the billboards, and it really shows the state of the city contemporarily. I felt like it was important to document because these are the things that kind of go unnoticed but we see day to day, but if you really take a step back and look at them, they've got a sense of humour, they've got political backgrounds, and they've got different connotations that really mean a lot more from what the surface says. All the work was shot on medium format film, black and white, and I used a 6x7 camera. Whenever I was photographing, I sort of looked for textures and scenes that had a bit more detail in them. One thing about the medium format is that I can document and get loads of this detail into the photographs for people to look at a bit strongly or pay more attention to, and I thought that was important as well, to sort of look at these like you haven't really seen them before.
My name is Eva Blakely-Hewitt, and these are my pieces. So this one is called Hidden, this one is called Glow, and this one is called Embrace. Where conceptually there isn't a strong message that I want to show with them, it's more the focus on the paint itself and the materiality of it. So I started off by throwing paint at the canvases and seeing how the paint dripped and everything, and the organic way that I was painting and the free way that I was using my hands reminded me of how I felt as a child, feeling really free. So actually I took it back to basics. I started looking at old cartoons that I used to draw. So actually a lot of those are what I used as inspiration for these pieces. I wanted to sort of get across that feeling of nostalgia and sort of magic without being too apparent about what is actually in the pieces. The references that I use are really just springboards. Once I sort of map out what I want the painting to become, the painting takes over and I forget about the references. So the actual inspiration for the paintings is the paintings themselves. After a certain point, I let the paint guide me.
My name is Elena Davis. I am a graduate of BA in Fine Art. My work is all about Irish landscape. I always was inspired by nature, by the nature elements, strong winds, the rising and setting sun, about beauty of this world. In my work, I also wanted to be honest with the viewer, to express the feelings I was feeling myself painting, and wanted the viewer to feel that beauty of the world, because it's only Irish climate has this beauty you see on a daily basis, but you do not always see it. But it's important to see the beauty of the world around you. Simple beauty, but it's here in front of you and it makes us happy.
My name's Anthony Wilson Setiawan. I'm from Indonesia and I'm enrolled in Griffiths College Dublin in BA in Photographic Media. The series on the wall, it's called Autopilot. The words obviously derive from the autopilot, meaning your body working like a machine automatically, which is kind of fitting in terms of how I produce this. There's a bit of both abstraction and a bit of street as well in the project. In terms of my own personal work and my commercial work, I think there's a duality between that. I think more of my commercial work is very polished, very clean. The personal work, like we're seeing now, it's more gritty, working loads with more punchy colors as well. There's definitely layers to it in terms of the technicalities of producing the image, how it's print, how it's framed, and how it's mounted on the wall. Definitely when we're producing the work, the color was definitely a challenge, because working with loads of dark and loads of blacks and punchy colors sometimes can be a bit muddy and a bit dull, but I kind of find a trick producing this using different papers or different glass for the frame.
I'm Inés Gómez Fuentes. I'm doing the BA Photographic Media course in Griffith College. My practice is right now more landscape. It's more about nature. I was looking for a lot of shapes, a lot of textures, contrast. I focus on particular light in landscapes, so they're all in black and white. I did in digital, very abstract. Mainly I'm inspired about my surroundings and I love to be in nature, so basically it came from that. But there's also a main thing. I found this poem, Mary Oliver's poem, that is called In Blackwater Woods, and she speaks about human need to embrace mortality, to really live in this world and to live in full awareness. So it's basically what the project it is.
I'm Nadia Kaimi. I just graduated from Griffith College from the BA in Photographic Media. My creative practice is mainly centered in documentary photography and visual storytelling. I am deeply passionate about documenting events that happen everyday life, from the most boring ones to the most engaging ones. My work, it's a photo documentary on the Islamic community in Dublin. Here I have 7 framed photos. They are a combination between wider shots and detailed shots. This work is mostly centered and about like more quiet moments of this faith and religion. They are very still images visually. My aim with this project was to make the viewer reflect and really sit down with the work for a little bit and try to really see what the images show. My aim as well was to show a different aspect of Islam, not the maybe traditional one that it's often been perceived or seen by people, but a more friendlier one and a reflective one.
My name is Trish Brennan. I'm Head of Department of Fine Art and Applied Art at MTU Crawford College of Art and Design. MTU Crawford College of Art and Design has an incredibly long and distinguished history in delivering education in the arts. The RDS Visual Art Award is just such a hugely significant award for graduating artists. It's the next step. The students have this opportunity, if they're longlisted, to have their work brought to the attention of a panel of curators. So the long list is a win. If you're shortlisted for the exhibition, it can be a pivotal launchpad for your career in the arts.
My name is Eve Clifford and I just completed my fine art degree in the Crawford College of Art and Design. I work across a couple of different disciplines: print, video, photography, drawing. I've always been drawn to a kind of graphic and more linear style of work, and I think that's because I try to make sense of and visualize the world around me. So I've always been drawn to kind of a uniformity and structure with my work. I also think I'm kind of influenced by a lot of contemporary issues, so capitalism, accelerationism, and a lot of my influence comes from writers like Mark Fisher, Timothy Morton, and I also love Shoshana Zuboff. I guess my practice is really about trying to explain issues that I'm concerned with, particularly around understanding the influx of information that we're experiencing, and also around topics like the excess of AI and technology in the world, the pace of life. And as an artist, I find that kind of difficult, but it also maintains my interest in my practice.
I'm Anja Kostolake and I'm part of the MTU Crawford College of Art and Design. My creative practice is installation-based through expanded photography. I use both text and photographic images to display this, including fading projections on the wall. So my work seeks introspectiveness and invites the audience to reflect onto the space. A questionnaire is offered to the audience, and this can be taken away, answered in their own time, and the data is never collected. When the audience first enters the room, they're met by sublimated prints of hair. These act as doorways to the installation, allowing the viewers to enter the woman's psyche. I have asked women questions about what it's like to be a woman, and their insights are found both through text and images. The visitor might feel like they're being surveyed, as this space creates a new space for the female gaze.
My name is Billy Adele and I just finished studying fine art in Crawford College of Art and Design. My work is an exploration into what it means to inhabit a body, especially a body perceived as feminine. I'm critiquing patriarchal constraints placed upon the feminine form using overt femininity in excess. I create unruly, leaking, large-scale bodies that kind of resist containment and demand to be looked at. I'm looking at a lot of grotesque theory, especially the carnivalesque, which leans into life's natural cycles of birth, life, death, decay and rebirth. I think of my practice as a messy protest, using paint as a really important collaborator. Paint mimics nature, so it's leaky, messy, it has its own agency. I can't control it. It also represents a dichotomy. Every time I pick up a paintbrush and touch it against the canvas, it presents a negotiation between chaos and control. My practice blends painting with my aesthetic and theoretical passions, which include campy horror cinema, sci-fi aesthetics, retrofuturism, the occult, and I'm reimagining the body as a site of transformation and resistance.
My name is Rachel O'Keefe and I'm studying fine art at Crawford College of Art and Design. My creative practice is rooted in an exploration of derelict spaces that are forgotten about. An area of particular interest for me was a 140-acre site. It was a derelict industrial site in my local area and it has been derelict for the past 20 years. My exhibition is inspired by a particular office space in this area. It was neither, inside or outside, equally untouched by time and falling apart. The demolition maps and the notice board represent how demolition isn't just destruction of what we can see in space, but also stories and histories. When a building falls down, everything falls with it, including the stories of people. Then the stories of the people are represented again within the debris and rubble on the desk. The windows represent looking inside and looking outside of the building. It's transitional and liminal. And then finally, I enjoy how when people walk around the space, everything moves slightly, again to represent the ephemeral nature of the work.
My name is Patrick Penny and I'm a graduate of the Fine Art course in Crawford College of Art and Design. My creative practice is an installation-based practice that combines bookbinding, screen printing, sublimation printing, sculpture and sound in order to create an environment for the viewer to occupy and to change their perception of events that have been omitted from history. The exhibition is a series of works brought together as an installation based upon one file ES14/21, which is in the UK National Archives. File ES14/21 was created by William Penny in 1945. William Penny is my great uncle and he worked on the Manhattan Project in the USA. These are photographs that he took while he was there. They were omitted from history, classified until 2010. It's coming up to 80 years since the events of Hiroshima happened. William Penny helped to found AWE, the Atomic Weapons Establishment, which still runs as an institution in England, and 3 generations of my family have worked there. So looking at this exhibition is to immerse the viewer in both a historical work but also a familial work.
My name's Roisin Maloney and I'm a part of the Masters by Research course here at MTU Crawford College of Art and Design. My practice is really influenced by my role as both an MA student and a technician here at the Crawford College of Art and Design. I'm a technician in our print studio and I work in the model of a circular economy, which means instead of letting waste go to landfill, I make sure it's reintegrated back into the making process. My exhibition is a culmination of 2 years' work. My large piece here is made from trash bags that are bespoke to the print room. This is what all of our print waste goes on, and they really inspired me because it's really the starting point of where I find all of my material. And these are printed with accumulated inks, so they're a mixture of past students' inks that left behind. And then some of my other works are made from a different kind of screen printing ink that is made from the digital filters of our digital printer in the print office, and we use that to print all of the students' transparencies for making. And when the filter is full of waste pigment, they usually are discarded, but I've cracked these open, collected the pigment and made it into my own screen printing ink, and it gave me this distinctive green colour that I had to work with, something that the site told me I had to use, so really embraced it. Even the walls of my exhibition are tinted with this pigment, so it's bespoke to the site as well. And a big question in my research is, can the throwaway become an art practice?
I'm Philip Napier. I'm the head of fine art at NCAD. I think we're really thriving in terms of students wanting to study this discipline and its allied disciplines in textile art and artefact and ceramics and glass. We've been really glad that our students have had the opportunity to speak about their work. People think that making artwork is easy, but the ability to plan, the ability to visualize, the ability to resource it, the ability to communicate to others, the ability to see it and make it amongst all of the possible futures and the dismal futures that pervade us. Really important work for our time.
My name is Margaret Kallenberg and my exhibit is Your Move. The concept behind Your Move is I've taken the Dublin Monopoly board and I have used it as a metaphor to look at and unpack all the issues and conflicts that are happening in the city of Dublin at this moment in time, and going back in time to, I suppose, starting in and around when the riots happened in the city centre of Dublin. So it's a metaphor for all the different elements. I've created a life-size version of the board and I've subverted the board and used my photographs, my photo montage, and put my message through the Monopoly board to give across the sense of asking people to think twice, to look where they stand, and I suppose ultimately to evoke empathy and compassion to all of the people who are vulnerable within the city.
I'm Alessandra Cobzaro. I've been studying printmaking here in NCAD. The title of my work is Walking Down the Memory Lane. Walking down the memory lane reflects on a personal journey about the heritage culture. I'm from Romania. Throughout my work, I wanted to get the audience a chance for them to reconnect with their own heritage and basically create a safe place, as my work was looking at bringing the past into the present. Regarding to the materials, I try to combine the traditional and the more kind of modern techniques such as embroidery, etching, and then laser cutting. I try to combine the present and the past into one work.
My name is Lana Jones and my work is called I Am Seaweed. My work explores mental health using seaweed as a metaphor for the self. I've seen myself in seaweed. It's fragile but also very resilient. So I start my process by going outside. I live next to the sea, so I've always been inspired by the ocean. So I took that and developed that further and almost seen mental health as a journey. My work started with the idea of staying afloat, but as I went through the process of printing and making and reflecting and learning about my own mental health, I learned how to heal. That healing isn't about trying to fight your emotions or fighting the waves of turmoil. It's about how you learn how to flow with the tides. It's definitely a really personal project, and I wouldn't have been able to make the work without having healed myself.
My name is Angelika Stachla and my work is called Clouds Observed. I studied meteoropathy, which is the concept that we are mirrors of the weather phenomenons and how weather can influence people's mental fluctuations and physical pains. So there are 7 prints suspended from the ceiling. I try to give them as much freedom and allow them to flow and move in a way that clouds would. Each image is an image taken from 7 months of college, and the clouds on it were a representation of my mental state within every month. And the paper used was the Japanese Hanalume paper. It's a very delicate see-through paper. I kind of want to just give the images a quality of the touchy subject of mental health. And then there's a central piece, and it's my artist book, which was a result of a daily journaling and sketching practice that was done throughout the year.
My name is Victoria Riley and my piece in the exhibition here is Natural Navigation. Natural Navigation is really like an intrinsic guide for soul searching. I primarily work with digital analog photography, screen print and bookbinding, so that's what the exhibition consists of. I've got 3 large-scale A0 prints, which are actually scans of shells within the landscape, but really zoomed in and intricate to try maybe articulate or visualise what a soul actually is. And then I also have a book that I designed and hand-bound, and that's accompanying the work. The work is based around the inner and outer human landscape, which is a term that has been coined before by John O'Donoghue, which is a fantastic Irish philosopher and poet, but I kind of took that, merged it with my own research and tried to look at the relationship between my father and I, but through the landscape of Baltray, which is a really personal landscape to the 2 of us near my house, because my father actually doesn't have a voice, so he'd be able to whisper, and a lot of our relationship has been founded within the landscape, and maybe not communicating to each other verbally, but communicating to each other with this unconscious dialogue through the land.
My name is Cora Devlin and my graduate show is called Act 2, Scene 21, In the Garden You Were Made for Me. My work explores the long-standing effect that the story of Adam and Eve has had on the treatment of women in modern society. So I look to challenge Christianity's dominant traditional prescriptions of gender and femininity through gender role reversal. I work predominantly with performance and capturing that through still images. My gender reversed imagery is juxtaposed against historical depictions of Adam and Eve in art, and with that I look to question how far society has come in relation to dismantling traditional gender stereotypes, especially in Ireland. In the culture we grow up in, Catholicism is so prevalent and it really controls the ways that we view society.
My name is Killian Querney. My work is called Between Digital and Physical. When you first walk into my space, you're greeted with a wood block that's mounted to the wall. So the block itself is a piece of Irish ash that's been sanded down and prepared for pyrography. It's hand burned onto the wood using a stylus. So I've taken imagery from video games as an inspiration because I found the images that I was looking at within various video games were reflecting areas within nature that I've experienced myself. The image behind it is a large-scale digital image that was taken in a photography mode in a game called Horizon Forbidden West. And that's made up of 56 smaller images that have been stitched together using photo merge within Photoshop. The video that's projected on top of it is a combination of various areas within the Dublin mountains and different footage that I've created myself on my own exploration in nature. And then you move on to the 4 framed works on the wall. So they're hand burned onto Kizara wood paper, which is a traditional method of planing Japanese red pine. I had to be a bit more precise, which ultimately gave me the outcome that I wanted.
My name's Sophie Morgan. My work is called Stations of the Art World. I'm looking at human behaviour around value and worship. For my art piece, I have made sculptural wooden shrines. Each one is kind of its own diorama where it's depicting a scene influenced by the Stations of the Cross, and it's looking at how Jesus would be in the art market. I've kind of always been interested in human behaviour, how they display different kind of behaviours when they're devoted to something. I was kind of always interested in the body language behind it, how each person can make their own personal shrine about something that they love. When you first come to the piece, I have 2 drawings depicting 2 kind of different crowds looking upon something that they worship, and they enclose the 5 shrines. For the wooden shrines, I have soft ground etchings and drawings inside of them, and they're depicting the scenes.
Hi, my name's Yosa Riddell. I'm a fine art print student in NCD. The name of my work is Changing of Perspectives and of Illusion. The concept is based on landscape and memory and my experiences of exploring landscape and documenting it and bringing it back into studio practice. I bring that through drawing, photography, installation and sound. And a lot of it is mixed media. So I'm just fascinated by analog projectors. The light boxes came about from these small slide drawings I did, and I blew them up into A4 sizes and then project those onto light boxes. I thought, because I've never done any light box before, and I thought that would have been interesting. A lot of video pieces I did were installations and recreating the atmosphere and the time of changing when I was in the Dolomites. So I was kind of recreating that through analog slide projectors and lights. The sound piece in my work is field recordings.
My name's Donna Lawler. My exhibition is called The Faults, an Extinction of Experience. The main concept is about the erosion that Ireland is experiencing at the moment and the rapid speed of the erosion of our coastlines. The fault is a geological fault in one of the cliffs out on the Hove cliff trails. I found through researching geological surveys this fault that was recorded. So I went back out onto the trails and I tried to track down where this fault was. And when I found the fault in the side of the mountain, it had eroded into this big giant face that has eroded over all these centuries. So who is that fault? We call the earth the fault, but metaphorically we're the fault. So every year I go out to these sites and I take photographs and I record the changes. Over the last 2 years I've seen huge changes. Thinking back to your childhood memories when you have these favourite places you would go and explore. What we can explore now and this beauty of our land and our formations, it's not going to exist for other generations.
My name is Melissa and my show is called As I Return to the Mother, I Am Remembered. The concept is very much connected to my shamanic healing practice, putting the self back together through healing. I do that through connecting with the land. So a lot of my work is based out in nature. I was working with a pine tree from the Trinity Botanical Gardens that fell during Storm Eowyn. I created these relief prints using soil and river water that became the panels in the installation, and I used the same pine as an altar and then as stools, and I also created a series of botanical inks that were in line with the Wheel of the Year, which is kind of like the pagan calendar. So it represented the dark months, the midpoint Imbolc, and then the lighter days to come. And then the video piece that is displayed is an Imbolc ceremony in which I'm offering the pine ink back to the river to say thank you for the healing that the earth has brought me.
My name is Alana Davey, and the title of my work is World of Pain. World of Pain came from my experience in this college. As part of the delivery of the degree, we have to do a notebook, and in that notebook we have to visit at least 6 exhibitions. I found myself and my peers going to these exhibitions, and I noticed that we were acting in very particular ways. As we came into the exhibition space, we started sort of performing. You would look at an object for a certain amount of time. You might put your hands behind your back. You might lean in. And it just revealed something to me about how performative these spaces can be. So that was one of the inspirations for the work. I have it installed in an emergency exit because I didn't want it to be in a classic exhibition space. From that reflection, I realized that I was being initiated into the art world. My exiting college is my initiation into the art world. My exiting of this institution is entering into another.
My name is Quentin Dunant, and the title of my work is The Border Between Reeds and Ripples. So the idea just stemmed out of my appreciation for being alone in natural spaces and framing them as the sort of centerpiece in my work. It's a 3-video installation and video piece, with 2 of the videos being around analog 16mm film, creating a loop of film that slowly gets scratched at. And then another piece I made is a collection of GIFs that I made of images of like waterways and the canal, and it uses digital corruption to like make the movement in the water look more divine and transient. I liked using them as a means of showcasing fragility within video itself. So the 16mm film is fragile in its nature. It's like extremely flammable. It has a certain fragility in like the fact that it's not being used anymore, and that a lot of means of developing it are sort of gone.
My name is Sabrina Dunn, and the title of my work is Sea Inside. The concept was to do with keeping afloat. I suffer with arthritis, and it's like an autoimmune condition, so I'm constantly trying to keep afloat or keep up with a society that maybe isn't really made for people that have conditions that are limiting, and it was born from the frustration of that. So I used the boy as a metaphor for myself. There's a Japanese art of kintsugi, which is repair, and the way they repair cracks or breaks in pottery or things like that is they repair, but they leave the seam highlighted in gold. So instead of hiding the crack or hiding the history of the object, they highlight it as a way of embracing the imperfections of it. And I thought that was really beautiful, because you suffer from a chronic illness, you feel like you're maybe imperfect sometimes, or that you're a little bit broken. With the boys, I repaired them with wax and popped lights in them so that you could see the cracks, and they're still beautiful. And with the piece, I wanted to create something that was uplifting. I didn't want it to be really heavy.
My name is Ciara Hennessy, and I did the work Fréamhacha Labhartha, which is spoken roots in Irish. I'm from an Irish-speaking background, and I'm just very, very invested in Irish as a current language and as a modern language. It's not something that's dying. The work itself is a multimedia piece with a wire head, paper flowers made from Irish books, and then a video piece of 2 Irish speakers having a conversation across the space. For the head, it is about 16 gauge wire, and it's all hand twisted. So I didn't do soldering or anything, it's all just wound around itself to keep it all as one piece. And it is a large scale head of a woman with her mouth open. Coming out of her mouth are paper crafted flowers cut from Irish books. They make 3 different types of flowers: the sea aster, the foxglove and the primrose. But all of 3 of them are the native flowers to the Gaeltacht areas. There's 3 distinct dialects of Irish. So I chose 3 different flowers that represent the 3 different dialects. And a lot of Irish speakers have come up to me from my work and said that they're really happy to see that there's fluent Irish being spoken still.
My name is Scout McLeod. My exhibit is called Embodied Landscapes. On one wall there's a really large scale tapestry, and in the centre it's got letters. It's taken from a document. My dad was born in a mother and baby home,
and his records were just released recently. They were sealed for a long time. The document is kind of saying the transferring of him from his mother to the Catholic Church. And then on either side, I have photographs screen printed showing the sculpture that I made. I took it to different places. Like I went on a trip to meet my dad's biological father, and I took the sculpture with me and I positioned it throughout the landscape on areas that are near his house. The sculpture is kind of standing in for the absence that was created by the mother baby home taking my dad away from his family and putting him into another family. There's so much secrecy and shame surrounding the mother and baby home records, and I kind of wanted to just make a really large scale immersive piece, kind of be the opposite of what the records are, and I wanted to have a large scale, really colourful, bright, draw attention to it instead.
My name is Olga and my work is titled Prime Cook. It started with me wanting to mix two subjects I'm very passionate about, which are horror and feminism, with the history of abuse against women seeming like a real-life horror story. And Prime Cut specifically mixes this in a way that is commentary on how women are treated in a patriarchal society. I visualize it as pieces of meat at a butcher's shop. They are picked and chosen by their looks, bought, and sometimes modified and then discarded. Women often have a so-called best before date. Prime Cut uses lots of traditionally female techniques in the textile industry. There's knitting, there's crochet, there's sewing and embroidery, but also the technique of putting them together using knitting needles, embroidery needles, and felting together felt like part of this cycle of abuse against women with all these sharp objects. The materials and the tools themselves also add to the project.
My name is Carla Louise Kirwan and my piece is called What Grows After Goodbye. So it's kind of mainly surround liminal space. So it kind of looks at disperses between organic and domestic areas. Originally it came from my hometown and it looks a lot at dereliction, the kind of taking over of nature. So it looks at where nature takes over buildings. So it began as a photographic endeavour and led then towards basically these highly kind of concept photographs that ended up coming into these watercolour paints. They represented this core idea of looking at this place of renewal and destruction. It surrounds, I think, time, loss, and looks at immigration as well. A lot of my work always surrounded this idea of verses. I kind of use art as a way of battling between questions or opinions or theories I have. And I suppose coming from a small town that had a lot of immigration, it's always kind of been something that I've been very connected to. This kind of idea of this kind of inherently traditional Irish landscapes and looking at that and how it changes over time is something that's always embedded in my work.
It's Alan David Kelly. The title of my work is Portraits. They're paintings based on real incidents or happenings in my life, my lived existence. And I take reference photographs from those experiences and then I reassemble them or reimagine them. And so it's basically looking at touching the human condition or the lived experience. Also, on painting terms, trying to touch on that line between figurative and abstraction, push and pull. Also, showing the process in the work is important to me, and I'm not trying to hide brush marks or hide how I've got to a place, but kind of showing people that process, because the process is important, and that vulnerability in the process, and that feeds back to the vulnerability in the human experience or the lived experience that I'm. And the people I paint are important to me, so it's family members, friends, myself. But then I take those photographs, or in some cases sittings, and I'm trying to create something or get to a point that's deeper than just that particular image that interests me at the start. I'm trying to convey an emotion in that person or a particular moment, and I'm trying to use the paint to kind of reveal something more interesting that can't be as easily understood as just a reference photograph.
My name is Sophie Ryan Ellis, and my work for the grad show is called And My Gaze Knows the Moon's Light. The title comes from the book Phenomenology of Perception by Maurice Merleau-Ponty, and my understanding of phenomenology is the study of how each individual person's lived experience affects their perception of the world around them. But also my work is really influenced by Irish mythology. So I take different stories from Irish mythology and I have reference photos of the Irish landscape from County Meath, layer things together and work from those in my paintings. The show itself, I would consider it to be a painting installation. So I have an oil painting on the back wall and then I have some large-scale paintings on muslin fabric. I like it to be kind of interactive in a way. I'm interested in how art affects the viewer, or the relationship between the viewer and the art, and how art can sometimes naturally lead a person through it.
My name is Ruth Carr and the title of my work is Spent Sacks. It started with me researching the historical appropriation of the female body in art. I read Lauren Elkin's Art Monsters and Rosika Parker's The Subversive Stitch, and both led me on to reclaiming the feminine. I was intrigued that the feminine is divided into 3 stages, the maiden, the mother and the hag. The feminine had been confined to this tightened space, and then the more I read, the more I realised that this notion that the female body throughout art history had also been tidied, for want of a better word. The messiness of it was tidied, it was idealised, and I wanted to reclaim it and show it for all of its reality. I wanted to depict the lived experience, what it's really like to inhabit a female body. I started with pooling pigments and ink on fabrics and using various mediums to see what would emerge. I liked the idea of using lining, calco, they're fabrics that support the garment. I thought they were an interesting way to represent the feminine.
My name is Julia Mishakowska and my work's name is Under My Skin. Under My Skin is installation-based work on cultural identity and the female experience. I found a lot of inspiration in Polish history, as that's my background. So the specific time period I was researching is the Polish People's Republic, which was the Poland under Soviet rule. And then I started thinking about the underrepresented demographics, so women, and how they held the households together during this time. And I use textiles to show the impermanence of that. So textiles are quite unique in that they are hard to preserve. Unlike an oil painting, textiles deteriorate over time. They're quite worn down. And the idea behind my work is that it's just constantly mended, repaired. It's distressed, but it keeps moving forward.
I'm Guia Rossi. My project is about trying to describe contemporary societies, in a way try to mirror the societies. Photography can be used as a testimony of my time. I'm interested in this topic since a long time. I feel that the role that we play as consumers are very important roles in our societies, and I don't feel that is represented enough. For me, it's a way to represent who we are, the way we live, the way we consume, and the direction we are taking, because I feel that many automatisms related to consumerism today, they are not part of our awareness. They are not rubbish, really, for me, because I'm trying to capture a moment where a product becomes waste. What I'm trying to do is creating point of contacts between each other, among us as societies and contemporary societies, and find point of connection. And I think being this kind of consumers can gather all together.
This installation, I wanted to provoke an emotional response from the viewer in a way to manipulate all the senses, so smell, sight, sound. It incorporates kinetic pieces, rotating paintings, glasswork. Lighting was really important, chalk drawings and projection. I wanted to get the viewer to feel something that was in some ways profound, but also a little bit ridiculous. When they walk into the space, there's a sense of being inside a machine or in space itself, and provokes thinking of the cosmos and the universe, but also all through the lens of doing the laundry and doing your washing. This exhibition is about embracing the loss of control, but also resisting the belief that we live in a chaotic and meaningless universe.